This is RangerCast, Episode 30, Power Morphicon 2024 Retrospective, recorded on Sunday, September 1st, 2024. In this episode, announcements about games and comics, and a Tokusatsu Motherload out of Otakon. Alright, hey everyone, I'm Tyler, better known as Real Volto, and I have Mike with me.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Last time we had Power Morphicon, but to this time we had Power Morphicon, we have had 26 episodes of RangerCast, which, hey, that's more than the real show.
You know what, I wasn't about to hit the books like that, but, wow, yeah, it feels weird. Like, I think it was during PMC that we ended up having to do an emergency episode. It was like only the fourth episode or so of the new version of this show where they dropped Cosmic Fury news on us, and that was huge.
I vividly remember coming out of one of the panel rooms and seeing you just kind of hunkered in the hallway of where all the panels were. Emergency podcasting.
Yeah. Because everything was kind of just turned upside down all of a sudden. So we're going to talk about this year's PMC, which was just last weekend. So yeah, we have a lot of news to go through. Almost none of it, for once, from PMC. But this stuff happens when you go a month or two without recording an episode. So first off, Power Rangers Day on August 28th came and went with almost no acknowledgement, actually exactly no acknowledgement from Hasbro at all. They last tweeted from the Power Rangers account sometime shortly after Cosmic Fury premiered. I'm not sure if there's anybody even really assigned to the brand at all there anymore.
And not to jump the gun a little bit, but I know it was not mentioned at all during Power Morphicon. I know that there was discussion behind the scenes of what weekend to actually have it this year, because obviously we're recording this on the Sunday of Labor Day weekend, which is September 1st, and Power Rangers Day happened to fall on a Wednesday this year. So it became the argument of, do we have it the weekend after or the weekend before? And everybody decided the weekend before was the best because it would be easier for people for traveling purposes and just logistically to be able to get the maximum number of guests there. So that's why it wasn't really mentioned. It was kind of assumed but not spoken that the convention would take the place of Power Rangers Day, if you will.
Right. But despite the silence on the part of Hasbro, a lot of fans were on Twitter and such talking about their favorite moments and what the series means to them. I mean, 31 isn't really a round number, but it was nice for people to visit Power Rangers' grave and reflect. But I mean, the show's dead, but there's still other stuff to talk about. That's why you have so much news. But because the show's dead, one thing you got to do when you're not going to make a show, you got to auction off all the stuff you're not using. And we learned a few weeks ago that Heritage Auctions in November 12th through the 24th, will be auctioning off 900 lots spanning the 3-decade history of the show. Basically, everything that hasn't met the wood chipper yet, everything that Simon Bennett said got shipped back from Auckland to the States, or probably almost everything. I don't know what Hasbro has that they would be keeping. Everything must go, basically, other than that.
And I saw some people upset by that when the pictures started being revealed, and they're like, how can they possibly auction off this stuff? This is a process that's very common. I don't want people to think that this is just disrespectful towards the franchise. This is just how the industry works.
Yeah. I mean, Hasbro is a company, not a museum.
Exactly.
And storage costs money. I mean, by the time the show wrapped up in New Zealand, they were using several different facilities just to store stuff. And Power Rangers is a show that builds up a lot of props and wardrobe. And the same thing happened in the early 2000s after Disney bought the franchise. They were clearing the warehouse, and a lot of those monster suits that weren't sent to the wood chipper were auctioned off for, in some cases, hundreds of dollars, in 2001 money, or 2002 money, I should say, or what 2006, whatever. And it'll be interesting to see exactly what is being made available and what it goes for. And some of this stuff is probably still in pretty good condition, like all those helmets they used in Super Mega Force, for example. So it'll be interesting to see like what's being offered and how nice it looks, and or maybe some like the Beast Morphers monster suits that were actually refabrications because they couldn't get the ones from Go Busters.
Right, because Go Busters was so far removed by when the time they got around to doing Beast Morphers.
That's right. They had to rebuild everything, or mostly everything. So I'm in grad school. I probably don't have the money to get my hands on something from the show, but good luck. Happy hunting if you are. And in the world of games, we're learning more today about Read and Rewind, which is playable at PAX West this weekend. Digital Eclipse, the developer, says it will be out by the end of the year on all platforms: Xbox, Steam, PlayStation, Switch, and it'll be only digital for now. Physical version that's not quite decided yet. But you can wishlist it now on PlayStation and Steam, and the Green Ranger is unlockable after you beat the campaign.
Wow, talk about an announcement that nobody was surprised by. Everybody knew the Green Ranger skin would be in there in some variety. So when they made this big announcement, like, just so everybody knows, we're going to have the Green Ranger in this Mighty Morphin Power Rangers devoted video game. I just thought it was funny that they tried to keep it a secret.
There's nothing stopping them from having other Rangers in there.
Yeah, wake me when there's a Dark Rangers unlockable. I want my ugly piecemeal suit to play as.
Well, the other game that people are talking about out now is Power Rangers Mighty Force, which just released on mobile, and it's a money sink, but the writing's at least interesting.
It shows that there's some love put into it.
Yeah, you can tell that the people writing this game actually watch the show.
Always a good thing to see.
Yeah, as opposed to the people putting out the toys.
It's nice to see that they have a nice variety of
that's the thing. That was a pleasant surprise. It wasn't all MMPR.
You got some Dino Charge in there. You got some Alien Rangers in there. Some Time Force, some Ninja Steel, some RPM, some Super Mega Force. So they have a nice variety throughout the 30 plus years of the franchise.
Yeah. Also, like the Dino Fury soundtrack, the Cosmic Fury soundtrack, composed by Bert Sellin, is now on streaming. It hit streaming on August 2nd, and it's really good to finally see Power Rangers soundtracks on streaming. Once and Always is on there. Jungle Fury, the first part of the Jungle Fury soundtrack, is on there randomly. Though there aren't necessarily, even though it's good in the context of the show, there aren't a lot of tracks that I would play on repeat, except for maybe the morph theme, or something like that.
Yeah, it's one of those trends that's happened in the past couple years where you had to really dig through, TVPMM and a bunch of other dark web websites to get soundtracks of shows. And the reason why they haven't been available is because people didn't think there was an audience for it. They didn't think the demand was there. So for people to be able to preserve these soundtracks and for people to be able to purchase them, it gives a little bit of love to, the composers of these shows. And it's nice to see that archived. Obviously, it's a niche item when they put these online. Not everybody's going to go there, but it is a nice, for the people that want it, and as long as it's preserved media, there's no reason for it not to be available, and it gives kickbacks to the composers, which they may have not received when they worked on the show, so it's pretty much a win-win for everybody involved.
Yeah, it would have been nice, now just thinking about it as I, look at the soundtrack on Apple Music, it would have been nice if the theme, if the soundtrack worked in a little more like of the MMPR music related to Lord Zed, but that's a complaint for Dino Fury too. But on the other hand, we're not the target audience, and the target demo probably doesn't really remember what you know that music sounded like back in the day.
See, I disagree. I think we actually are the target audience for the official soundtracks because what
No, I mean the
7-year-old
score
watching?
of I mean the score of the show.
Yeah, but oh, I see. When it actually comes to producing the music, but I'm
Yeah.
saying like in terms of putting the songs on various outlets for people to purchase. No 7-year-olds be like, "Hey, mommy, I just watched Power Rangers Cosmic Fury on Netflix and it was really good. Can you buy me the soundtrack that played during episode 8?"
Mm,
That's not gonna happen.
yeah. Yeah. But speaking of things that probably are a little more in our wheelhouse, rather, we're slightly closer in age when it aired to the target demo of Power Rangers Mystic Force. Nick Sampson, who played Chip on Power Rangers Mystic Force, recently had a show at the Edinburgh Fringe titled Yellow Power Ranger. And it's a one-man show about him trying to reunite the cast at a convention. The show, if you want to see it, you're too late. And also, it's in Edinburgh. It was in Edinburgh. Um, Speaking to the tabloid Metro in the UK, he reflected on his time of the show. He said that he lived in Wellington at the time when he got the job, and he had to move up to Auckland and live in a hotel for about 6 months, and it was a bit traumatic because he couldn't cook for himself, so he blew all his acting money at the hotel. He said the first time he tried to cook a meal for himself, he says, I think I made tin spaghetti and I put eggs in it. It was just an awful meal. I was like, maybe I'll just order room service. He said his parents wanted to make sure you save your money while you're working on the show. And I was like, well, I don't think I'll ever have to work again. But by the end of the season, he said he'd spent most of his Power Rangers money on the hotel.
Mm.
He sort of lived off the money for a while. Then he got a job at a bakery. And he said having to get up really early to do that was definitely a humbling experience. So Power Rangers made him into a very particular type of actor, which is a Power Ranger actor, which is a good point. I think he makes, that it's a certain type of acting that isn't necessarily portable. He said he would go and audition for these quite serious roles and be a little too big and probably doing too many kicks or something. But eventually he landed gigs like the Brokenwood Mysteries. He was on that for 7 seasons, and it's a show that you may be able to watch on your local PBS station or certainly on Acorn TV.
Yeah, and a lot of people were surprised how much he referenced Power Rangers experience in this one-man show. A couple people were positing the idea that, well, if he's able to talk about this, would he potentially do Power Morphicon at some point down the line? Because as far as I know, he's never done it. And I know that there were talks of trying to get him to do it because Mystic Force had a really good showing this time around. If Melanie had not canceled and Nick did not have this instead, they would have had the core team. They would have had everybody there. I know they were really gunning for that this time around. So
Yeah, that's
I
right.
would say it's possible for him to do it in the future, especially if he's that willing to talk about it. But yeah, the one-man show obviously took priority. That was a pre-existing arrangement that he had.
Yeah, but he's a busy guy. Good for him.
Yes, it's always good to see people from the show in any capacity making that money and getting that work.
And pivoting to comic news, there's an Usagi Yojimbo team up coming as a one shot written by Ryan Parrott. This is due out on September 25th. Here is the synopsis from Boom Studios. During a routine Rita Repulsa attack, Rangers Morphers do something unexpected by hurling them back to the Edo area of Japan. Upon arriving at their historic destination, the mysterious Ogasawara begs the Rangers for their help. But the enemy they face isn't what they were expecting, and our band of heroes will have to face a painful revelation if they want to save the day and return home.
Yeah, whenever I see the word mysterious in a Power Rangers description, I keep getting Samuel Benta flashbacks, which is a little bit scary. But whenever I hear about something going to the Edo era of Japan, I don't know how familiar you listeners are with Super Sentai, but I love to go back to the Edo era of Japan all the time. And it's a little surprising that it has taken Power Rangers in any capacity this long to do it.
When was the episode samurai set?
Samurai. Oh God, it's been so long since I've seen
I mean, one of
Samurai.
the flashbacks, I guess.
Oh, are you talking about Power Rangers Samurai, or are you talking about the
No, no,
Samurai
no, no.
episode
The
of like
episode
SPD?
samurai.
Oh yeah, from
Yeah.
SPD. I mean, it wasn't. Was that even a flashback? I thought that he came to 2025.
No, no. The alien, like the flashback that with like the with Deca Red's actor.
Oh yes, I think that was Edo era, and that might have been the only time in the show. So it's been 19 years since the franchise has touched it.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know why I randomly thought of that.
Weird filler episode of SPD.
I mean, not necessarily. I think it was like the first time we saw the ball of light.
One of the first, but
Mm,
they brought the Ball of Light a couple times throughout before he was introduced as the Omega Ranger. So you could. It's one of those episodes where it's not one of the first ones you think of when thinking of SPD in retrospect.
yeah, that's right. Here's some slightly more interesting comic news. Boom Studios announced Power Rangers Across the Morphin Grid, kind of following up the return by having an anthology of stories written by David Yost, Walter Jones, Steve Cardenas, Matt Groom, Nakia Burris, J.D. Sutton, and Megan Camarena. Most of those people have something in common being former Rangers. They get to explore stories of interest to them within the Power Rangers universe. In a statement released by Boom Studios, David Yost said it's, quote, a true honor to work with all the talented people at Boom Studios and to be asked to write a story based on my character Billy. I had so much fun imagining where Billy would be at 28 years old. I trust fans will enjoy my story and all the various stories being told in this anthology. And they kind of give hints as to what their stories might touch on. Steve Cardenas, who wrote his story with Matt Groom, said, I'm so excited that Boom Studios is expanding the Morphin Grid anthology, and it looks like I'm next on the list. I've had the great privilege in the past to briefly work with Boom about rocking his background, but now to have the opportunity to create and collab and tell my own story, it's a dream come true for me. Nakia Burris, teasing her story, asked whatever happened to Tanya and Adam. Maybe something that would bridge the gap between the last time we saw their characters and their appearance in Once and Always, working with the precursor to SPD. Megan Camarena, who played Chloe in Power Rangers Hyperforce, uh, will return to the Hyperforce world once again in this anthology. So she promises burritos. That's one thing we know we can see.
There you go. I mean, when you have a franchise as long as it has been, you obviously will have gaps in storytelling, especially between appearances of the old guard when they come back for anniversary specials and stuff. So the untapped potential is certainly there. So it is nice to see them being able to utilize the comics to bridge those gaps and tell some stories that may not necessarily have fit the confines of the television show.
Yeah, yeah, and this one shot will be, or anthology, I should say, will be available in your local comic shop and in digital storefronts October 30th.
It's not Power Rangers Day.
No, no, it's not. Did they not get the memo? So the more consequential Power Rangers comic news isn't about the one shots, but it's about the new comic series, Power Rangers Prime. This was tipped off at San Diego Comic Con, but we didn't quite know all about it, what Power Rangers Prime was, because you see Prime number one, but that could mean a one shot, could mean anything. But in late August, Boom Studios did announce that that would be the new Power Rangers series going forward. I talked to Melissa Flores briefly at her table, and she said this was something kind of pitched to her, and it presents an opportunity to kind of like start afresh and not be weighed down by everything we know from the show. In an interview with IGN, she said Kyle Higgins, who started an amazing run, said very distinctly that he wasn't telling Power just the way it was, which was aimed at younger kids, a little campy, a little over the top. He was telling Power just the way he remembered it making him feel. And that always really stuck with me. I always thought that was really incredible. These books really took the characters that you fell in love with and treated them with so much respect in terms of really digging into their character arcs and establishing who they were as people and what the power meant for them. We were able to do so many amazing things. These incredible writers came up with these amazing new characters that only exist in this comic book world, and the fans in general just fell in love. Um, so rather than focusing on the MMPRs over again, the new series focuses on Lauren Shiba from Power Rangers Super Samurai, who, when we see her, she's on the run from an Altarian police force, and they're hunting her down because she's a Power Ranger, and she's come to where else but Angel Grove, Flores says, for a very specific reason, and she runs into trouble. And we start to meet other characters who either help her or hurt her, depending on how they feel about Power Rangers. And we see this new Angel Grove and how it came to be, and there's no Zordon either, so all the characters need to kind of figure it all out on their own.
That very specific reason she came to Angel Grove, brand recognition.
Well, nearly everybody came to Angel Grove in those early years, or Stone Canyon.
Yeah, this is true.
But she says that the highlight for her is that, quote, the entire zeitgeist of Power Rangers is open to us. I can't explain why that is, not yet, but we get to play with some really fun characters. We look at every single character of Power Rangers, not just in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but all over the place. Like I said, we have Lauren and Samurai. There's a Megaforce character in there. We've already talked about Jungle Fury characters. They will show up in different ways, not the ways maybe you expect them to show up. And she kind of compares this to Marvel's Ultimate line in the way it puts a new spin on the mythos.
As someone who does not really partake in the comics, which I have nothing against the comics, it's just never been my scene, I'm sure this is really exciting for those who are. And as I mentioned previously, is nothing but untapped potential. You can pretty much do whatever you want. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, the designs for the book are by Dan Mora, and the art for the series is by Michael Eag. Um, and it hit shelves in November 13th to be exact. It's available for pre-order at your local comic shop. Digital copies are available from all of the usual suspects. So for anybody wondering if if the end of the storyline meant that the comics were going away entirely, that is not the case, and apparently they're in it for the long haul.
And you love to see it.
Even though the continuity of the old comics is over, if you want to catch up on all the old comics, if you go on the Humble Bumble website, you can get a bundle of everything that's out to date except for the return. All digital, of course. They're not going to send you a big old box. But you can get Darkest Hour #1, the archives, which is huge. Everything from Shattered Grid, the Pink miniseries, the the Draken stuff, Sins of the Future. Is Psychopath in here? No, I don't think it is. But oh yeah, it is. There it is. There it is. Oh yeah, so basically nearly everything that has been put out for the comics to date. You can technically give as much or as little as you like. They're asking you to pay at least $25 for all 32 items, and the proceeds go to benefit Hasbro Children's Hospital.
I was not aware that they had that kind of involvement. Because it's kind of a weird thing. You don't want to advertise it too much. It's like, hey, everybody, look at us taking care of kids. Are you taking care of kids? No, you monster. You can't do that. Mm-hmm. But it is nice to see that they, behind the scenes and behind closed doors, were doing some good.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up the history. Let's see. Hasbro Children's Hospital was built in 1994. It is the only pediatric emergency department level 1 trauma center in southeastern New England, as well as the only pediatric imaging and sedation, food allergy center, and pediatric critical care team and ambulance that operates 24 hours per day, 7 days a week. When did it get Hasbro's name? Whatever. It's just a fun fact. Also, Super 7, this isn't exactly... It was kind of... Actually, maybe the one thing to really be announced is they are putting out a new Ultimates figure for Lord Draken. You may have bought him in the Lightning Collection flavors, 2 different Lightning Collection flavors, I believe. Or, if you're, OG, the Bandai one, Power Morphicon. but this is out in January. It comes with a damaged red helmet, damaged Saba, swappable heads, all of that. And their goal with these figures is to make it like the one figure you'll ever need to buy. But it's $55 and it's out around December. Entertainment Earth says January. Super 7 site says December. But if you click the link in our show notes, you can get a 10% discount off your order.
And thank you to Entertainment Earth for setting that up for us.
And note that we may get a commission. But anyway, this figure looked really cool.
Yeah, again, the comics were never my thing, but if you're a Lord Draken fan, this is the one to get.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that we never got the live action series that JDF was pulling for, but it really is a fantastic likeness of him on the figure. Well, two different likenesses of him. And I know the Bandai one came with an option of a head for Saba that you could just pop off, but no such option here. There's a Morpher, and like one of the suggested poses has him holding Jason's helmet at his side. And you can see how detailed the cracks are. That's just absolutely fantastic. I mean, that's why you pay the money for an Ultimates figure, for details like that.
Exactly.
And the fact that the character never appeared in the show gives them the opportunity to be more creative in what details they include.
That's true. I don't have anything to add to that. You summed it up perfectly.
Yeah. And something that was at Power Morphicon that we all kind of assumed was coming. 3-0 after putting out the Zeo team had a display of the Power Rangers Turbo team, and I actually really had not seen any of their figures like in real life, and seeing them in real life, it's something different. Like I can see why somebody would pay $100 bucks for those things.
Yes, it is begging the question of how far they are going to go, because I know some people were like, well, wait a minute, if they've gotten the Turbo, that means they're going to get through everything. There's a long way to go before they go ahead and hit everything.
Right, and you kind of wonder, like you can sell individual Mighty Morphin Rangers easy, but they had to sell the Zeo Rangers as a team because that's the only way that it makes sense.
Right.
But in Turbo would probably be as a team too. You kind of wonder, like, is there a point, like, where it's kind of diminishing returns? Like, who is going to buy, a team of Lightspeed Rangers? I mean, there might be somebody, but they got to make money.
They sure do. So it's nice to see, but I'm curious how far they go and at what frequency, how quickly they go through other teams.
Yeah, and the question is, how far are they able to go? I asked this at the Super 7 booth, and the guy said as far as it, because last year, or rather some months back, Hasbro pawned off the Master Toy license to Playmates, and starting next year, they're going to be cranking out MMPR toys till the cows come home. And how does that affect the specialty market? And the guy I talked to at the Super 7 booth said, as far as he knows, like, they're still planning out things for next year, et cetera, et cetera. And it would have to be the case for 3-0 as well, unless and until somebody tells them to stop.
Yeah.
Also, in the distance, in October at their virtual Renegade will launch a Kickstarter for the Heroes of the Grid add-on Eternal Rangers. Now, I have Heroes of the Grid. I don't play it because I'm never in any situation where somebody could play it with me. But that's cool, and I'm sure there are people who are into that. I don't mean to sound like I'm talking down to you if you are. I just mean I got too much stuff.
Isn't that the case for so many people? They leave these things.
And also, well, here's some positive Kickstarter news. Last episode, we talked to Tommy Trembath about her Kickstarter for When We Transform, and that just yesterday did close, and that was funded, and I am really happy. I don't know offhand when that project is ready to go. You can go back and listen to our last episode and hear all about it from her. Uh,
Precisely.
yeah, and that's going to become a Patreon. The Kickstarter is just for the first issue, which is going to be, depending on what you backed it at, it's going to be a physical thing. And I also spoke to Andrew, the director of Metal Force, another Kickstarter project we featured on the show a while back. He said everything's coming along, but there's not really anything to report just yet. Still kind of getting all the funding together because that didn't make like Kickstarter didn't make as much as they wanted. I mean, they hit the goal, but they didn't like they need other investors. I mean, that's the story of everything. So, but he still like had a table. He had a mock-up helmet there. They're still working on it, but it's going to take some time.
Mm.
Now at Otakon, boy, all like I actually took a lift in the rain because I didn't bring an umbrella like a dum dum from my hotel like a block away back to the convention center to make it into Discotheque's panel because there's always something, there's always some morsel, and I got locked out, and my dumbass had to sit outside the panel room streaming the panel. I mean, thankfully it was streaming, but of all the years for me to be locked out of a discotheque day, this was probably the most frustrating because they dropped the absolute mother load. Um, they're putting out Kikaider, they're putting out Winspector, they're putting out Electric Dragon 80,000 Volts, which is Gakuryu Ishii's tokusatsu action film. They're putting out Robo Geisha. It they're putting out V3. They're putting out Scheider. It was just like the absolute mother load. And some of these are not things that people thought would ever be possible. The V3 is a rescue.
Yes. I was gonna say I thought I remembered hearing about V3 some time ago.
That's right. That's right. They just put out G-Bon and Shotibon, so they're really going deep into that. Kikaida's rescue too. I mean, both Kikaida and V3 were put out by Generation Kikaida. And if you have those releases, you shouldn't necessarily feel bad because those are still good releases. But these episodes will include all their episodes in HD, along with extras like interviews, cast reunion, liner notes, photo gallery. The liner notes actually will be by our friend Mike Dent. And the reason, like this is supposed to be out, excuse me, V3 is going to be out in 2024. Shida is going to be out in September. Kikata 2024, yada yada yada. Some of these don't necessarily have dates because their tokusatsu series are long. That's why it's taking so long to get Digimon done because approvals, all that. Boy, oh boy.
It's certainly a lot, and I know people are quickly trying to fill their shelves.
Yeah, yeah. And Kikaida, that Blu-ray is going to include a vintage recording of the Kikaida stage event that included Daisuke Ban. So that's going to be really cool. There's going to be an interview with Daisuke Ban and all sorts of other things. Basically, everything they could find. And Discotheque has really been doing the Lord's work in this regard.
Yes, I think I saw them announce, maybe it was another company, correct me if I'm wrong. Did they also announce that they're doing a Blu-ray release of Mystery Science Theater?
No, I think what they did announce was MXC.
MXC, that's right. Well, I misspoke. That's egg on my face because the MXC is the one I was particularly excited about, especially because seasons 4 and 5 are very, very difficult to get a hold of. I don't think they ever officially released season 5 prior to this, so that was certainly a pleasant surprise for me.
Yeah, they released season 4 in 2008. But that's probably like super duper duper out of print. There are a few episodes that they can't release.
Yeah,
But yeah, at this time, the releases are just going to be up to season 4.
which makes sense. Season 5 is mostly just the same footage as previous seasons, just with new commentary anyway.
Yeah, there are a couple episodes they can't release for licensing reasons.
Yeah.
Um, they just were not available. So we are going to take a break, and then we are going to talk about our Power Morphicon experience. See you in a bit.
My nephew liked the Power Rangers, and I did this on his birthday where he had all his friends around. They were like, Green Ranger. I said, let me show you the real Sentai. I'm going to show you the episode where Green Ranger actually died. And they were sitting there looking. A couple kids started crying like, no, Green Ranger can't be daddy. And the parents were like, what are you showing our kids?
The Anime World Order podcast.
Not suitable for children because the truth hurts.
Visit us online at www.animeworldorder.com.
And we are back. So, as we mentioned at the top, last weekend was the semi-annual biennial? Yeah, whatever. Every 2 years, Power Morphicon. Ostensibly the official Power Rangers convention, though there was no presence from Hasbro this time around. And nevertheless, it was still incredibly busy. It was probably the biggest attendance that one of these things I think I've ever seen. And I've technically seen all of them. And Mike, for those of you who don't know, he staffs Power Morphicon.
Yes, I do.
He moderated several panels, but it was a really great time. Despite, the drama around one panel, which we're going to get to. But yeah, it's always great to return to Pasadena and see friends and see people like we're the only convention where you could, well, one of only a handful of conventions really, where you can do some of the cosplays and just the craftsmanship. And also seeing guests you don't normally see, like Jason Chan. It was his first Power Morphicon, and he just seemed kind of dumbfounded that so many people were there. And it was really, I mean, an experience probably just as much for them as it was for us.
Yes, and you mentioned guests in particular. There were so many guests that were sponsored this time around that this was their first time.
Yeah.
This person, Javier, alone sponsored 14 different guests in order to come out.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. I mean, my favorite kind of guests are the ones who seem to be as excited to be there as you are. Like Nikolai Nikolaev.
Nikolai is awesome. Nikolai is just a trooper. For reasons that I don't feel like getting into, he had to fill the slots for moderator for the 6th Rangers panel. Because over the course of the weekend, it became vacant. And this guy, Rolo, was asked to do it. And he was ready. He came like 30 minutes beforehand. He was ready. He had all his notes prepared. He was good to go. And apparently there was some sort of miscommunication in Power Morphicon, drink, and someone had asked Nikolai to moderate himself. So it kind of did this weird hybrid thing where Nikolai did a lot of it, but Rolo got to ask a couple questions on the microphone. But that man, Nikolai, is a total professional on the microphone, and he's engaging to listen to, and he's really good at letting others speak, and I was very impressed with how he handled being thrown into that kind of situation very last minute.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you went to his table, he would stamp you with this like Rhino Ranger stamper that he got, and he would make you sign the banner, the poster board or whatever at his table, and just like apropos of nothing, he pointed out a photo, like a set photo, makeup photo of him like from the set of Daredevil. And said, "You see that tattoo on my arm there on the photo? And you, what's that tattoo of?" And I clocked it right away. 10 rings. And he seemed really excited by the idea that he was connected to this larger Marvel concept, even if it was just Marvel Television messing around. But he's like really seemed intrigued by the idea that that his character could impart that, even if Vladimir is super super dead.
Very much so. And again, Nikolai just happens to be the first one. There are so many great guests that come to Power Morphicon.
Yeah, and it was surreal though, because like, I mean, the thing about these cons is one of the things you get as a photo op, with a ranger or other character in their costume, and it was just so surreal seeing these people book it, from behind their tables to the photo ops and back in costume, because it, something just feels like you're so weird. It's so weird, like you're used to seeing somebody in their costume on TV and seeing them basically cosplaying themselves in a sense, like right in front of you. It's just so mind bending.
Yeah, there's definitely a couple of them out there who love to put on the suits again. I know Azim Rizik loves to put on the Ranger suits. Amy Miller will always bust out the Trakina suits these days. And Brendan Mejia is always a shoe-in to wear the Dino Charge stuff. But it is nice to see, and obviously you can get your your in-suit photo ops through the lovely people at Pose. They were there the entire weekend as well.
Yeah, I didn't pay for any photo ops just because they were, a little pricey. I was trying to watch it, and again, grad school. But I think of something that Christian Bale once said, and paraphrased, about playing Batman. Yeah, he couldn't move his neck or anything like that, and it sucked. But at the end of the day, he got to he got to be Batman, so it doesn't matter.
Yes, and we're definitely seeing that more with the younger guard of actors who portrayed cast members on the show. You definitely, because now we're reaching the generations of people who grew up watching the show.
Right.
Spoiler.
Well, Brendan Mejia especially is one example.
He went to Power Morphicon as a fan before he ever got cast to be on Dino Charge.
I mean, Yoshi Sudarso was one of those people who put on the suit for promotional events.
Exactly. So you definitely see that passion in the panels. You see it when talking with these people, and you can tell that, especially because I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but I definitely get the impression, having done this twice now, that some of the older cast members, older crew that go to these conventions, you can definitely tell that it's rotes to them at this point. It's definitely, hey, I'm here to make some money. But you definitely see that spark in the eyes of even Neo, Saban, and younger, I would say. That group is always so excited to be there.
Well, I think also, I was at the Wild Force panel.
I missed that one because I was obviously working.
Yeah, and Alison Kipperman and I recall it's Alison Kipperman and Sin Wong. It was her first convention. They both where
did they dust Sin Wong off to find her? Wow.
Yeah. But they were there, and they kind of got emotional talking about what it's like to come out to an event like this and realize what an impact that they had on people, and what an impact the show had on people, even all these years later.
And to double back on what I was saying before, not all the panels are out on Justin Naranjo's page. Justin, PMC staffer, films all the panels. He's going in chronological order. I know he's in Washington, D.C. Doing some work stuff.
Yeah.
He's only gotten through the Friday panels at this point.
Yeah.
One of the prime examples of the newer cast really appreciating the show is they brought back the Diversity Power Rangers panel. Shay did a great job with that again.
Yeah.
But this time around, they had Peter Sudarso on there. Preston, Ninja Steel.
Yeah.
And Algin Abella from Jungle Fury was there just watching the panel. He wasn't
billed. Yeah.
He wasn't billed. He was just there because he was interested in it. He eventually got coerced to join on stage, and there was a very touching moment between Algin and Peter about Peter saying, Algin, your portrayal as Theo in Jungle Fury was the reason I thought I could become a Power Ranger, and they had a very touching moment between the two of them. Yeah, it was crazy.
That's so cool. I wish I'd been there. I think I was.
Like I said, you'll see it online.
Yeah, I think I was in the next room or something like that. But somebody else who was living his best life the whole weekend was Yasuhisa Furuhara, who
Oh
played
my
Go on
goodness.
Red.
I don't know if I told you this story, Tyler. So I am setting up, testing the microphones in the main ballroom on, it must have been Friday. Oh, it was early Saturday, excuse me. It was Saturday morning before anything was supposed to start. They had a new vendor. They brought these floor microphones that were just put on the table. So that way you could sit anywhere at the panel table and you could be heard. Of course, some of the people on the panels did not realize that, so they would pick up the microphones and start eating the microphone very badly. So you'll hear some audio disparities in videos of the panel. That there's nothing we can really do about that when you set them to be one way and they pick them up and start eating them. But I'm setting up for a sound check, and I see a head pop through the door, and I don't recognize who it is from a distance because I'm all the way on the other side of the room. But the room's supposed to be closed off to everybody. So I run over there, I open the door, it's Yasuhisa Furuhara. He's just walking around, filming stuff for some sort of social media. I don't know if it was an Instagram short or a TikTok or anything like that.
YouTube or something, yeah.
Yeah, and he's just like, "Do you want to be in my video?" Like, "Yeah, sure, I'll be in your video." He's like,
Does
"Yeah."
he speak English?
He had a translator with there as well. He
okay.
speaks a little English, enough to
Yeah.
get by.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure he could order a burger if he really wanted to.
like me in Japan.
Yeah, so there's going to be some video out there of him going into the main ballroom, asking me what the room is for, and it's just me and him partying around in the main convention hall, just the two of us, and he does the morph, and his engine soul flies out, and I definitely pick it up and hand it to him, say, "You look like you've done this a couple times before." So I hope that video sees the light of day somewhere. That was a surreal moment. I said, it just... One of the greatest moments of PMC was completely unscripted, and nobody saw it.
But he did post a video of him doing the henshin with Ika Darville, and
among others.
Yeah, with everybody, whether we like them or not.
I happened to be in the right place at the right time, where I saw him come up to Ika Darville's table.
Yeah.
And it was really fun watching the swarm of people come by as soon as they realized that it was actually them meeting for the first time.
Yeah.
I don't know if Ika necessarily knew who it was right away.
Yeah.
And then it slowly dawned on him that it was his Japanese counterpart.
Yeah, well, he was also wearing the wig a couple days.
Yeah, oh, he had the wig on at the time.
Yeah, that was so cool. Like, he was really, he was in his element the whole weekend.
Very much so.
And Matsuhito Inoue also seemed to have a really good time.
What do we have? 8 Japanese actors, I think, this time around? Up from
let's
2
see,
in
1, 2, 3, 4.
I think it was 8.
See, yeah, 8. 4 Showa, 4 Heisei.
So that was a pleasant surprise to see how Toku Spirits and all them were able to secure that many people.
Yeah, they turned out. Again, I wish that I, had the patience to stand in one of those lines. Lines weren't as bad as I thought they would be.
Well, when you have 2 million guests, it did help lower down the lines, except for Erin Cahill. Erin Cahill's lines.
Oh yeah. Well, she wasn't there the whole weekend.
No, so she's always one of the top 4 in terms of attendance, and not being there the whole time.
Yeah, and initially the schedule. We're not going to get into why, but the schedule initially did not include a lot of the team panels, including one.
Yeah,
and I'm glad that ultimately they did get their flowers.
They did. Ultimately, what it boiled down to is, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but the person in charge of scheduling the panels pretty much succumbed to other people wanting things and did the best they could. And ultimately, some changes needed to be made when seasons were not happy that they were not represented. Like, the fact that there was no Cosmic Fury panel, and they were the most recent season, was kind of ridiculous. Now, granted, they wanted to have a lot of the Forever Red, Forever Yellow, Forever Pink, because they wanted to listen. A lot of fans had said that they missed those types of panels, and they don't have them every time, so that's just kind of a, you got people are paying for the event, you got to make them happy. This is what they want, you got to give it to them. Like, I can't really be too mad at that.
I mean, if that were the rationale, you wouldn't have had the autism panel.
Well, maybe we'll talk about that later. But some of those panels, like Forever Red, I know had a really big turnout. The Forever Pinks panel, for whatever reason, only had 3 show up. Christina Masterson, who had to leave early because she had a photo opportunity she had to go to. Psycho Pink's actress, whose name unfortunately escapes me.
Vicki Davis.
Vicki Davis, that's her name. And they wanted to get Jessica Rae in there, but again, the person who did the original programming double booked her because that was opposite Wild Force. And
Right.
obviously,
Well,
they
yeah.
felt that Wild Force was the way to go. And they had to combine blue, green, and black because there wasn't enough interest from the actors. So they only had like 6 or 7 of all those colors combined. But I happened to be in the room during the 6th Rangers panel where 13 of them showed up. And that was a fantastic panel.
Yeah, so I've heard.
Yes,
Nikolai Nikolaev kind of becoming the moderator.
Yes, and there's a really touching story of David De La Tour talking about his experience meeting Claire Blackwelder for the first time, and him going like, "Are you the Purple Ranger? Because I was the Purple Ranger," and how they really bonded over that. They seem to become very fast friends.
That's cool. Yeah, he's a really nice guy. I went to his table to get an autograph for a friend, and he seemed legitimately curious about her and why she couldn't be here, yada yada. And he ascribed it to her saying, "Sorry, I missed you," and I got that off to the mail to her. She lives in Colombia, so she couldn't make it. But she told me I made her year. Just like I saw her bemoaning the fact on Twitter she couldn't be there, and I was like, "Yo, let me get this for you. You could get me back. I don't care." And he's just such a really nice guy.
He was actually 2 doors down from me in the hotel. He was one of the 2 Ranger actors who was particularly close to our hotel room. The other one being Colby Strong and Liana Ramirez were sharing a room 2 down from us on the other side. So I actually got to chat up Colby and Liana a lot outside of the convention, which helped because I ended up doing the Beast Morphers panel this time. So I ran a lot of ideas by them. And again, maybe it's just because of my background. Maybe it's just because I'm the right age or everything. But when I see these people, I don't see like actors necessarily.
You see them as people.
I just see them as regular people. So we definitely bonded quite a bit. And I hope that shows whenever you see the Beast Morphers panel when that comes out. And I say us, by the way, because I do want to mention that I brought my fiance with me this time around.
You did. She was supposed to maybe join us, but the timing was not right for this.
Yeah, we just got back from our California vacation last night, so there's a lot of stuff that both of us had to take care of. So unfortunately, she couldn't make it. I was really hoping to get her on here to share her, because she's not a Power Rangers fan by any stretch of the imagination. She caught Mighty Morphin maybe 1 or 2 episodes when she was, the prime age for it, but she is not a fan. She does not follow the show at all, and the reason we were able to do this is because we went and saw her family in San Francisco after the convention for a week or so. But she did the convention with me as a volunteer, and she ended up having a fantastic time. She was the first one to mention possibly going back before I even did. As a volunteer, I will say this. There was another organization worth shouting out, Ranger Sponsors International. They were definitely heavy in getting a lot of people there and being kind of third-party agents for a lot of the cast. But Rachel and I are standing around on Friday trying to find something for her to do, and Ranger Sponsors International comes up and told Rachel, I was like, "Hey, are you interested in being a guest handler?" Which pretty much means you kind of sit with that person for the entire time, handle the money, take photos of people as you see fit. And Rachel's like, "Sure." And they start rattling off names, and she's like, "Look, I have no idea who any of these people are whatsoever. Can you just listen to the names and pick one for me?" So they're rattling off names, and I'm like, okay, these are pretty good, nothing too crazy. And then Tessa Rao's name comes up. I spoke, I think last time we had Power Morphicon, about how Tessa Rao did me a huge solid about when they had the Kids Rangers panel, or Kids Force, and I asked her that she should probably get a photo op with the Kids Force kids, because they also wear the Dino Fury suits. So she was always in my good graces at that point. And I know Tessa Rao is a very popular actress at these things. I know that some people wanted to be with her for maybe not the best reasons, and I felt that Rachel, as a non-fan, was probably a very good pick to be with Tessa, so I set up Rachel to be with Tessa for the weekend. They hit it off so well, it's unbelievable. They're like friends.
Wow.
Now. Great.
Yeah, I didn't go table, but it seemed like all the Dino Fury people were having a great time. I think somebody once
they
pointed
also had
out
all
that
7 of them there.
Yeah, yeah.
And then some. Victoria Abbott was there too. She is the nicest.
Yeah, yeah. I would have, wished that they got Jane's actress, whose name I'm blanking on.
Kira Josephson.
Right, exactly. I just brain fart. But she's down in Auckland, yada yada. She's probably busy on Kid's Sister or something like that. But Hunter Dino, I think you said that somebody told her that she was setting her autograph price too low. Would you have told me that?
I did not tell you that. I did not mention anything
heard
about
that.
prices.
I had conversations with a lot of people over the weekend, but it's like she was setting it like 20 something when she easily could have been charging more.
I know Tessa was 40.
Yeah, I mean there were probably other actors who are maybe charging more than the market should bear, but it's Power Morphicon, and people, if you want that autograph, you're gonna get that autograph. Like I think one of the people I think the only graph I came home with was that of Jason Chan. Who didn't really have a line at his table and was able to talk to him, for a bit about the convention and what Ninja Storm meant to me, all that.
Yeah, but a lot of that's not even against Jason Chan. It's more where he was placed, because he was also directly opposite all the Japanese actors.
Yeah, and Austin St. John and Walter Jones. In fact, you talked about like Hotel. I was on the same floor as at least Reuben Turner, who was carrying his helmet, all that. But there were a number of Ranger guests in the Hilton where I was staying. I shared a really awkward elevator ride with Austin St. John. I'm not sure if he remembered me. But apparently wasn't the only person who shared an awkward elevator ride with Austin St. John, or shared any other kind of awkward space with Austin St. John, because it's just the elephant in the room.
Austin did kind of bum rush the Once and Always panel I thought was actually a pretty decent reason, and that's Charlie Kirsch was unavailable. She wasn't at the convention yet, and they started off with the Once and Always. But at that point, I'm like, can you really be mad at him for wanting to join the Mighty Morphin panel?
Right, and to be fair, he did say something really gracious about Charlie Kirsch and her performance and the special in general, which he didn't have to because he wasn't involved in it.
Right, so it was nice to see him there. I know he had a very touching moment with a fan near the end of that panel. So it just shows that people are complex. Like, say what you will about Austin St. John, we certainly have on this podcast. There are moments where he absolutely does step it up as a human being. So,
tell me about it.
No man is an island in terms of things that they do. People are complex.
Yeah, the same guy who said the German mustache guy had some great quotes also jumped out from behind his table in 2014 and took care of me. And that same guy, also can say some motivational things himself. But I don't mean to compare him to that guy. But he can also commit PPP fraud. So people contain multitudes.
Yes. Speaking of panels, one thing that the previous programming had really tried to do, didn't necessarily agree with it, but I think I understood. We had a lot of panels devoted to fan projects this time around.
Yeah.
In fact, I ended up moderating, because they needed a replacement moderator, Wild Force New Frontiers, a sequel series to Wild Force, where they make a lot of props and stuff, so that was kind of neat to see. Pretty much all of Saturday was devoted to a lot of fan projects. And some other side quests is what I kept referring to them as. Johnny Young, Bosch, and Jason Narvi have a film production studio together, so they got a 2-hour panel for that. And the reason
that was 2 hours?
That was a 2-hour panel. It was 2 to 4 that day. The fact that they had a 2-hour panel for their project was part of the reason why Tracy Lynn Cruz got a 1 hour devoted to her project. It was pretty much if they're getting this, why can't I do this kind of thing?
Yeah.
And all I'm going to say about that is I was very fortunate to pitch a panel this time around, the Comic Relief Characters panel, and I got to moderate it. And, oh man, you want to talk about a stacked lineup. Jason Narvi, Victoria Abbott.
I wish I were there, man.
Barney Duncan, and Kelson Henderson. As far as I know, that was Kelson's only panel this time.
Really? He didn't even... Really? Huh.
It was the only one he was scheduled for, because I remember I like to go around to all the people well ahead of time, be like, hey, I'm moderating your panel. And Kelson's like, that's my only panel this time. And I was very surprised by that. Yeah, and Victoria Abbott, that was going to be her only panel before they actually made a Cosmic Fury panel,
Yeah,
which they were able to
yeah,
retrofit in there. I believe that was Barney's only panel.
yeah. There were a lot of actors who just did like one or two panels, whereas they would have been busier. Um,
No, that panel was a lot of fun. I cannot wait for that to go up. It's probably the most R-rated of all the panels.
oh, okay. I can't wait then.
It's going to be a good time. Diversity is also good. It's also pretty R-rated, and that's simply because of Ross Durrani being on there. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. The
I
actor
think
who
it's
played Nick
fierce.
on Fierce Durrani, the actor who played Nick on Mystic Force.
Yeah,
You want to talk
yeah.
about someone who's engaging on the microphone but has absolutely no filter. That's certainly one of them. This was his first PMC since I believe the
Ah,
original was
yeah.
2007.
That's right. That's right. I think
It was him, Jack Guzman, Deborah
mm,
Estelle Phillips, Algin Abella, Peter Sudarso. I think that was everybody that was on that one, but that was
see, I guess the
it's a
problem with
good time.
PMC is like there's only one of you and you can so many panels. But I
Well,
think kind of going
fortunately,
back to the kind of
we
thing
have the
I was
staff
hinting.
to film it, so you can
Yeah,
definitely catch them
exactly.
after the fact.
Actually, I think something about that is like I think that in light of the fact that a lot of these panels are being filmed by somebody, I think staff needs to do something about the sort of person who's up towards the front with a selfie stick and blocking people's view.
Yes, you had mentioned that during the Showa panel, I believe that was.
I think in my case, yeah, it was somebody who was like blocking my view with the camera.
Yeah, because fortunately, Tyler was kind of my eyes because I kind of had to run 3 rooms at the same time. Remind me to circle back up on that. I have a story about that.
Yeah,
Tyler was definitely my eyes and ears for one of the panels. A friend of Ranger Cast, Lisa J, was another set of eyes and ears that she was telling me some stuff if something needed to be tweaked or fixed or whatever. Eric Francisco was there too. He was helping me out with a little bit of stuff.
he
And
wasn't there.
oh, Eric was not there.
No,
Eric has a doppelganger, and somebody was definitely super friendly towards me that I thought it was
no,
him.
yeah. He asked me to get him something from Tsuyoshi Nonaka's table if he's there, and I told him he wasn't listed a guest, he wouldn't be there, and wasn't there anyway.
Eric, you have a doppelganger out there then, so I am sorry about that.
Yeah, yeah,
But
no,
I definitely had 3 or 4 people that were helping me out in terms of seeing things. The reason why I mentioned my comic relief characters panel is we had to go on right after Tracy Lynn Cruz's panel in the same room, and let's just say I was talking about it with all 4 of the people who were on the panel. I wanted to get the Katrinas so badly. They just had a photo op they couldn't get out of. I really wanted 3 and 3 in terms of men and women split for the comic relief characters. So I felt bad for Victoria being the only woman. Let's just say everybody on the panel was definitely in the same boat as I was regarding Tracy Lynn Cruz's panel and how
yeah,
I may or may not have tried to get it canceled over the course of that weekend. And
yeah.
Jason Narvi definitely kind of goes on a tirade about Tracy during the panel to the point where I didn't have to. So, yeah, let's just say people definitely knew about Tracy's panel. We had about 50 people or so in attendance, but a lot of people were not happy. And the people who, there's pretty much 2 or 3 people that were responsible for making that happen. And once we all found out about it, it was kind of unavoidable that it could be moved. But I will say that Tracy did actually hear the criticism and did change the subject of her panel somewhat to make it more palatable to everyone. I will give her credit. She did listen.
I think I've no right to speak for that community,
Neither do I.
but I think too
We're dancing
often,
around it. Let's just say it. It was an autism panel.
I think I did say what it was. Did I?
Oh.
Whatever. But it was an autism panel. I think you can't say this, but I can say it. Scott Zillner, the proprietor, often prioritizes his relationships with potential guests over everything else. And we've
It is
seen
a smart
that.
business decision.
Yeah. We've seen that with Samuel Benta being invited back to the last one that we had to cancel. We saw it with Hector David Jr. being welcomed to his door. We saw it this year with Austin St. John being allowed to attend. And we saw it again with that panel being allowed to be put in the schedule without Scott or anybody else who was putting it to get that schedule together, so much as Googling what Autism Speaks is, what they stand for, and why neurodivergent individuals don't like. When I was working for a cup of coffee at Towson University, the men's basketball team has an autism awareness night, and that has to be like carefully calculated to keep the peace between the fact the coach is a supporter of Autism Speaks, has an autistic son, and the family that bankrolls the school center for adults with autism is very much not a fan of that. And so it's not the night itself isn't affiliated with any group in particular. It's just an awareness, and the color or whatever is specifically chosen so that it doesn't match with Autism Speaks or any other group like that. It's like Switzerland, basically.
Yeah, like I understand why they let her do it. I know that there's some people who are very upset that the panel happened at all.
Yeah,
trust me, I tried my best to get it canceled. I really did.
Right.
I ran it as far up as I could.
Like, I think if you want to do a panel on neurodivergence in the fan community and have that emerge from the fans, then that would be great. That would be awesome. But this was not that.
The trick about that, though, is because the panels are filmed, it becomes a
Yeah,
case of would a fan want to be willing to be seen purely by where they fall on the spectrum as opposed to who they are.
Well, this panel was not recorded.
No, they specifically said this was the one panel you could not record. We did not record it. Definitely saw somebody recording it with their cell phone in the front row, even though there were multiple warnings saying you shouldn't.
But here's something that was awesome in programming this weekend: the cosplay contest. Goddamn.
I missed that because that was like the very end of the day on Saturday.
Yeah, but did you see some of the photos that we posted?
Yes, it was incredible.
Yeah, I thought that daughter space cosplay, that was so cute. It was her birthday, and she got an autograph from Dino, and just like so cute. Like
she won, right?
Yeah, they won a judges award. Yeah, the one that won the contest was a Go Say Great Megazord.
Oh, was it Go Say Great Megazord, or was it the ultimate or the legendary?
No, like the Gokaio that you might have seen running around.
Oh, the legendary Megazord. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I lose track of what was called what in that.
Yeah, it's hard to.
There was also Mega Dragonzord that did not.
I understand what you're saying there. If you allow me to circle back for a second.
Yeah.
Because I was running 3 rooms at the same time with sound. There were some other people there who were, bless their hearts, they were trying so hard to help, but I would before a panel, if I had the opportunity, I would sound check all the mics. And this was a case where they set up the equipment on Thursday before I even got there, and they threw out the cords that were bad. Fine. Did they replace the cords that were bad? No. So we were definitely left with fewer microphones than normal. I think we had 6 in one room and 5 in the other on terms of the side rooms. The programming, we definitely need to do something in terms of programming in the future. I'm going to try to be on programming for 2026 if I should do it, because we need to have something happen where, prime example, the Villainous panel that Neil Kaplan was in charge of on Saturday. When Neil Kaplan told me, I stopped by his booth a couple times because we talk about like tech stuff. He pretty much said that I think going forward he doesn't want to be a guest at Power Morphicon anymore, but he wants to continue moderating panels because he said he's so far removed from the show at this point, and he said a lot of the voice actors of that generation are not really making the money to justify having the booth, but he loves going and he loves meeting friends and he wants to be involved still. But he was doing it.
That's fair. Yeah, especially a voice actor like him.
Yeah,
because it's not like he was, voicing, lead villains or anything. He was voicing Gluto.
Right. And Diabolico.
Oh yeah, and Diabolico, but like not as iconic as someone like Barbara Goodson.
Exactly. So we get to the Villainous panel, and I was told to make sure that the rooms were set up for the correct number of chairs per the schedule. And I saw that there were 7 guests scheduled to be on the Villainous panel, so I set up 8 chairs, 7 plus a moderator. During the Villainous panel, We had a VTubers panel this time around, and the one panel room was actually closed for that hour, specifically to set up the special equipment needed for the VTubers panel. They had to have multiple microphones because they were having Discord integration. They were going to have people allowed to chime in on Discord and everything. It was very neat, and we ended up getting it to work, which was super cool. It was kind of an all hands on deck situation while that's going on. I happen to peer outside the room, and I see Colby Strong looking a little lost, trying to figure out what's going on. So I run out there, because obviously, I've been talking to Colby and Liana all weekend. I'm like, hey, Colby, what's going on? He's like, is this where the Villainous panel is? And I'm like, no, it's all the way on the other side of the room. So I walk with Colby to show him where it is, and I take a look inside the room, and there are 15 actresses on the panel all of a sudden. They had 7 on the main stage, and on the left side of the stage, on the floor, they just kind of had chairs strewn about. Colby's like, why is Liana not on stage? And sure enough, Liana's one of the ones on the side. So I later learned that all the Villainesses, I don't know how they decided which 7 were supposed to be on there. Maybe a lot of them were like recent additions to the guests list. They all kind of invited each other to be on the panel. So they all decided to show up, and poor Neil Kaplan, he's got the microphone, he's asking a question, he's turning off the microphone, he's running in front of the speaker to avoid feedback, he turns back on the microphone, and he hands the microphone to somebody to answer the question. And it looked like, I get why he was doing it. I told Neil I was very thankful that he did that, and I explained why I couldn't have made it better, because I said exactly what was going on. That was probably the most embarrassing moment of me, because I felt like it looked bad on my part, just because we hadn't set the room properly. You'll see when the 6th Rangers panel comes out, who had slated 13 Rangers to be on it. If I know ahead of time how many people are going to be on there, I'll set the room properly, and it'll be good to go. But unfortunately, because I had set the room for the scheduled number of people, and they all kind of invited each other to be on there, it looked bad. I'm sure it was a good panel anyway, but that's what happened there.
Yeah, the Stunts panel, you had Dan Southworth running to and from the 6th Ranger panel.
Yeah, he made a great entrance in the 6th panel. But again, he wasn't supposed to be on the Stunts panel. They just kind of invited him. Peter Jang was not supposed to be on the Stunts panel, and he just kind of invited himself on the panel. It's great to see
that happens. What you going to do?
Yeah, it's like, we appreciate the enthusiasm, but I don't want people to expect us to be ready all the time, because you'll probably... And the ultimate theme of the main problem I had with PMC is that we were incredibly short-staffed. That was the main problem.
Oh, yeah.
And the main reason for that is because we had so many guests, and it turns out a lot of them wanted handlers, so they culled from the volunteers pool to have all these handlers, so we didn't have the hands on deck we needed to do everything else.
That's right. This is something that needs to be addressed. I mean, Charlie Kirsch had her parents there, but there were, I can definitely see how that can be a strain on the staff, because you don't have enough volunteers to provide a handler for everyone the whole weekend.
And there were definitely a number of volunteers, I can't name names, nor would I, that signed up to volunteer, got their volunteer pass, and then dipped just to get access to everything for free.
Ooh, that's rough. I mean, I think that needs to be a little more strictly governed.
And again, the main person who was in charge of that aspect of things was not there for the entire convention, so there was definitely a big hole that we needed to fill. So a lot of us definitely stepped up. There was a few people that actually became volunteers just because they wanted to help, which I very much appreciate.
Yeah.
But I know that people say PMC is a hot mess, and there are ways that it is. I will say that even though there are parts of it that were this time around, there were definitely people there that helped rectify the situation and make it better. And it's interesting because I'll go online and see how people respond to PMC, and most of the people who badmouth PMC, especially this time around, are people that did not go in the first place. And most of the people that went to PMC said that they had a fantastic time.
I mean, there are people who boycotted PMC.
Understandably so, and I'm not saying that you're wrong for doing that. I agree with you. But again, my whole thing is, as a staff member, I feel like, yes, there are some situations that would cause someone to boycott, but PMC is such a large behemoth where all those controversial things I didn't even really deal with, and you can't make it a bad situation for the fans that still want to go. You still have to try and make it the best possible convention for those who are still willing to go. So that's kind of the mindset I have going into it.
Yeah. So, what was your favorite memory that you'll take away from this year's con, besides being a YouTube star?
Is that what I'm? Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna call it that. I mean, that's up there. Just seeing Rachel and Tessa get along as well as they did. Like, obviously, there's a strict rule in play where you're supposed to delete all the S numbers and everything. If that wasn't the case, I could definitely see Rachel and Tessa being friends and communicating after the fact. I don't think they're going to. Tessa's got a specific number for the US and everything, and she's got to go back to New Zealand at some point. But no, just seeing them hit it off really well. Really bonding with Colby and Liana again, just because I saw them so many times, just because we ended up taking the elevator and the Hyatt a lot. I didn't get to walk the floor that much. Again, just because I was working so hard, especially moving TVs around. We only had 2 TVs in 3 rooms, and all these panels wanted to have a TV, especially these fan projects on Saturday. If you want to be a vendor at PMC that has a panel, that's fine. Let us know ahead of time what you need. That would help so much. Instead of showing up being like, we need a TV. Okay, you're not getting one, but like we don't have the resources for that. But like I said, Beast Morphers panel was great. I actually did something new this time around where I put all 7 of the panelists' names in a hat. It was like a fishbowl, like a Purell hand sanitizer emptied out plastic fishbowl looking thing. And I had all of them draw their own names, and whoever they drew, they had to ask that panelist a question. It could have been anything they wanted, so we had some really fun, unique questions about Beast Morphers that no one else had ever asked before, which was my goal going in, because
that's interesting. Yeah,
I always
like a lot of these panels, everybody asks the same questions.
Yeah, so I ran it by all of them ahead of time, and they were all like, "That's a fantastic idea." So you definitely get to hear some things asked that never had been asked before. The Rangers really appreciated my question about, and you'll see Rory had a fantastic answer to it. I asked, being of the younger generation and kind of seeing superheroes growing up when you were a kid, does being on social media take away from the mystique of being a superhero? And they really liked that question because they'd never been asked that before. So I like asking really insightful things. My comedy panel is obviously a huge highlight. I kind of felt like the Berlin Wall between Jason Narvi and that era of the show versus the New Zealand era of the show, because they were all on the other side of me.
Right.
That was super fun. And, just getting to see some people, having everybody who was on the Mystic Force panel, like Jeff Dolan, John Toohey, Richie Brancatisano, they all came up to me.
John Toohey is such a gentleman.
Yes, and they all came up to me and said how great of a job I did moderating the Mystic Force panel last time. That was kind of, that'll set you buzzing for the entire weekend. They actually remembered.
Right. And John Toohey, like, if you
John Toohey is such a solid dude.
Yeah, if you go on his Instagram, it's incredible, like how, like, he could easily like wash his hands of having been in Power Rangers. You look at everything he's done, everything he's doing, but he's still very gracious towards this show that gave him his career.
Yeah, I regret not seeing the RPM panel. It just didn't work with the schedule.
Oh yeah, it was great. It was great. In fact, that reminds me, because they pointed to them in the crowd, Eddie Gazelian and Madeleine Paxson, where they are kind of chilling.
Yeah, they were there. Justin was in the back doing the filming.
Yeah.
Told me after the fact, and he's Eddie Gazelian is just standing in the back. So Justin's like, because he didn't recognize him. He's like, can I help you? Like, are you trying to find a room? And he's like, no, I'm in the right place. I was the executive producer of RPM for the first half. I'm Eddie Gazelian. And Justin's like, why don't you get up on there? And Eddie's like, they're not going to know who I am. I never met the cast at all during the point of the show. They don't even know.
What?
Nope, he never met them. He never met the cast.
That's really interesting. What? What?
Never met him. So they had no idea who he was. I mean, they probably
what the hell?
With him, but never saw him in person. So he felt that it would be best to set off. But yeah, he was definitely there.
That's wild.
That's a little bit of PMC.
That's why, considering how. I mean, obviously the cast knew he was there because they kept pointing to him.
Yeah.
That's weird.
I think maybe he was just being shy.
Okay.
Maybe he thought that maybe the fans wouldn't know who he was.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's very interesting.
You'll probably hear a story or two about Dan Ewing during the convention that I wasn't there for, that I'm not willing to go into, but Dan Ewing was apparently having a grand old time at PMC, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I regret not getting to his table or Milo Cawthorn's, but like they always seem so busy, you know?
Yeah, apparently Milo was having the time of his life. Adelaide is always a treasure. I didn't get a chance to do anything with her this time around, but I did get to talk to her quite a bit in 2022. She's great. She's also one of those people that you think that she would put it behind her, but she's always there.
Yeah. I mean, again, this is a show that, you know, whatever the bumps and bruises, gave them their visas.
Indeed. And I always have to give credit not only to Justin, who filmed everything that you'll see online at some point, not only to the rest of the PMC staff and volunteers, but to the venue staff as well. They are so quick at tearing down that hall. It's unreal. And just, they do a very good job of maintaining security at the event. That's entirely on the venue, so I have to give them their flowers as well.
Yeah, it was really nice, you know, even though a lot of the old guard doesn't go to PMC anymore, it was nice to see, you know, some of those familiar faces or familiar, you know, handles, you know, people like Jesse, JCU, and people just hanging out with outside after the show ended, after Con ended, like the Twitter user Condamns X. His name's Adam. He's from Wales.
And they did announce recently, I want to say a day or two ago, that there will be Power Morphicon in 2026, and they are bringing back PMC Express in 2025.
Right, we don't know where. It was in Texas last time. There's another Power Rangers in Texas, so we don't know where. It could bring in this show on the road. Don't really know.
Yes, but one of my main concerns going in is 2022, as you told me, as many people told me, was such a different beast of a Power Morphicon. Being my first, I had no point of reference, but everyone said because, you know, first one after the height of the pandemic, the line between guests and congoer was a little blurred. Everyone was definitely just kind of in for themselves, and just a warmth and a camaraderie that was there. Yeah. And I honestly felt that was still there for 2024. That hadn't really gone away. And especially when there's no show going on right now, and everyone's just still going to this convention because of the show, all the guests they're going to a convention about a canceled television show. And they're still turning out in record numbers of guests. And just because of wanting to see the fans and wanting to see each other, after doing the convention this time around, lent me the confidence I needed that PMC is going to be going as long as they want it to. There's no real jeopardy of it going away.
Speaking of, I had a conversation on the Saturday with my friend JC, who goes Dragon Zero on the forums, all that. And he asked me if, you know, over the past few months, another like People magazine articles and such about Anna Nicole Smith's daughter dressing up as Sentai characters, for Halloween or whatever. And he was asking me if I thought that she was there, and I said she's probably here and we don't know. And sure enough, after the con on Instagram, her father posted photos from Power Morphicon where she was cosplaying as Ankh in plain sight, and nobody noticed.
I mean, it's one of those things where we're not going to know what she looks like.
Right, exactly.
That's exactly what she wants. She wants to live a normal life.
Yeah, exactly. And she's been doing a baller job of letting her live a normal life. Like she was like, there's just photos of her with Yasuhisa Furuhara, and she's having a great time. And the other, just having a great time. And
that's probably the most exposure PMC has ever gotten as a convention. So, you know, Scott and them are loving it.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, her cosplays are always just like top 10.
Oh, yes, for sure.
And she's got like Ankh's hand and all that. I mean, not all of us have somebody do our cosplay.
Yeah.
Or wig.
I'll ask you. I'll mention this real briefly. They had, and because you actually got a chance to check this out, they actually had a museum exhibits for Jason David Frank featuring a bunch of his stuff. I know you got a chance to check that out if you wanted to go into that a little bit.
Yeah. The former costume designer and master for Power Rangers were there, and there were a bunch of prints that like set photos, not just like makeup photos, but like photos taken on set of characters. I didn't pull the trigger on any of these prints, but it's really cool to see some of these like pieces of concept art and such. And these are like really one of a kind things you get at PMC, and along with the usual like screen use, props, or like casts of coins, that thing. And Morphin Museum, who we had a Q&A with, they had the original screen use Phantom Ranger helmet at that table, so that was really cool.
Yeah. And I guess I'll ask you, turning the tables and I guess taking the host thing what do you want to see for Power Morphicon 2026, since you've seen all 8 of these in some capacity?
Yeah, in some capacity. Let's see. I think
it's safe to say that all the quote-unquote problems this Power Morphicon had were minor, yet stuff that we couldn't really control ahead of time.
Yeah, I think, it would be nice to be a little more creative with the sort of programming available. Like, if color panels, sure, whatever. I don't really think there's really much that on these panels have to talk about. I think, something that's like, I think it's more interesting to have panels on things like stunts or the production aspect of it, or, history. I think there's a place for some fan panels. But I think that like either you have like it needs to be clear like what things are in the contest and why do these other things have their own panels. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I get it. And I can only speculate. I do think a lot of it was there were a lot of sponsors this time to get guests there.
That's
and
right.
I think a lot of them were involved with fan projects. So I think it was very much a case of, okay, you gave us X amount of money to bring these people to the convention. We'll throw you a panel.
Yeah, I think a way to address the volunteer issue is the way Otakon does it. If you're a gopher, you pay for your membership like anybody else, and then if you work X number of hours, you get that reimbursed after the fact.
Yeah.
So that might stop freeloaders from freeloading.
Yes.
If they, have to sing for their supper. And then if you keep working, additionally, they will comp some of your hotel.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to go about it. We'll talk to the people who are still waiting for their 2022 swag from their non-attending.
Yeah, I guess the problem is, you need people.
I have no involvement in that. Please do not write me. I have no involvement in that whatsoever.
You heard that? You heard him. Send your hate mail to Mike Manos.
No, don't do that. I'm not involved in the merch at all.
You heard him. Send your merch issues to Mike Manos.
Oh.
Oh boy.
I will say that they're actively trying to get that taken care of. There's some people on staff now that are actively trying to take care of all that stuff. It's pretty much a case of certain people who are no longer affiliated have like the giant databases of the people that need to get stuff, and it's just a matter of getting it from people.
Yeah, as for going to the next PMC, like,
I don't know if I'm going to, because I kind of have a wedding to plan.
Oh yeah, Mazel tov.
Well, eventually, yes.
I think, like for me, the calculation is a bit like there are other things I can do in LA besides just go to Power Morphicon, so I get a little more out of the trip. But on the other hand, I'm getting older and I've got a girlfriend. I don't feel like, I mean, she would probably encourage me to go, but it's like, if I were to take her with me, for a lot of reasons, not a trip that she would get as much out of. And she couldn't really volunteer, but like, just kind of, like, it's just a tougher sell. It's not a no. It's just a tougher sell. It depends on where I am in my life and what have you, because a lot can change between now and 2026. So I'm just not sure.
Yeah, ain't that the truth?
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else you wanted to add?
No, that's pretty much it. I hope that this gave a fair picture of the convention. Like I said, everyone seemed to have a really good time. The merch side of things seemed to be absolutely killing it. We had record numbers of guests and record numbers of attendees too. So
Oh yeah, I can feel that.
yeah, and unfortunately there was some COVID outbreaks after the convention had happened.
Oh yeah, thankfully I didn't feel that.
I did not feel that either. I tested negative. It has been 4.5 years, and I have yet to get COVID. Apparently, I don't want to say I'm built differently, but whatever I'm doing is working.
Yeah. And also one last thing before we go, the Morphin Museum just dug up something really cool. You want to check it out? I'm going to put it in the show notes. They found the original Dino Ranger pitch that used Bioman pilot footage. This is sometime after Saban's Galaxy Rangers, but before Mighty Morphin Power Rangers footage was ready. Saban released Dino Rangers, a 6.5-minute pitch, recycling more bits from the lost Bioman pilot cut against G-Ranger footage, and even some Bioman. So this included things you might remember from the pitch that was included in the DVDs, along with an Americanized Peebo as Alpha 5, plus a variety of new shots of the teams from that pilot in the desert, additional interactions, and a final moment of Zack at Victor Lee's dojo. This pitch reel includes Barbara Goodson as the voice of Rita Repulsa, while also dubbing Trini and Jew footage of the Bioman pilot cast were years removed from production. Much of the dialogue would be recycled from the MMPR piloted series. Other observations, this is all from the YouTube description, go watch it, we'll link in the show notes. Dino Rangers would have been set in 2014. Zordon was referred to as both Xantor the Wise and Zoltar, which is the name he had in the MMPR pilot. The command center was referred to as the Desert Control Center. Instead of the power coins, they were the coins of power. Squad and Babu were Grok and Mongo. Bones was one of Rita's core hench monsters, which kind of maybe understands like why it might have been on Bandai's mind. And the Dinozords and Megazords were referred to as the Dinodroids, again, they were in the pilot, and the Mega Dinodroid. So just wow, what a find! Please support them on Patreon and read our Q&A, which I did make sure was ported over when we changed to our new website.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So that is all from us this time. Thank you so much. We will see you next time on RangerCast.
Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye. If you like what you just heard, find us at rangercast.net or look us up in your favorite podcast app. Reach out to us on Twitter or leave a voicemail on our website. The opening theme is by Daniel Park. The ending theme is by me. RangerCast is distributed under Creative Commons license. Attribute and share alike.